In the late 1950s, when I was a teen, my father, Anton Claus, began a love affair with Mexico, Mexicans, and the Spanish language. The genesis of this romance is unknown to me, but under its influence, my father taught himself Spanish and tried to teach me too, although that ended badly. Long before the internet, at a time when country-to-country phone calls were a luxury, Daddy planned a weeks-long trip to Mexico for himself and my mother, Eleanor, and two friends of theirs, Molly and Helen, and me. Using his newly acquired Spanish, written on brittle blue aerograms, he made hotel reservations for all of us in Mexico City, Acapulco, Cuernavaca, and Tasco, and planned our complicated itinerary. My two younger sisters, Julia and Gretchen, were left at home with a caretaker. Although it was 60 years ago, más o menos, and my memory comes up short on most details, I do remember this trip with great pleasure. I was treated as one of the adults. I had my own room in all the hotels we stayed in. I had adventures. Daddy, Mother, Molly, Helen, and I flew to New Orleans and spent a few days there on the way to our first Mexico stop, Acapulco. One evening after dinner in the Big Easy, all of us went to a club where a famous jazz musician was performing. I wish I could remember who it was and what instrument he played, but his name is long gone, as is the 45 RPM record I bought and had autographed. We all sat at the bar with the stage right in front of us, and between his sets, some girls did a striptease. My father probably thought that I, at almost 16, should be exposed to some of these things. In Acapulco, I learned to water ski with a handsome Mexican instructor not much older than myself, and a slightly older and just as good-looking motorboat operator. We travelers would divide our beach time between the morning beach and the afternoon beach so that at no time of day would we be where the sun was the strongest. We stayed in one of the most charming tropical hotels I've ever seen, with thatched roof cottages ringed around a pool and lots of brilliant, noisy birds in the palm trees nearby. One afternoon, after returning from the beach to bathe and dress for dinner, I turned on the shower in my room, and one of the faucet's handles came off in my hand. As if it wasn't hot and humid enough already, now steaming water was pouring out with no way for me to turn it off. I threw something on and ran to my parents' cottage on the other side of the pool. My father and I raced to the office, there were no phones, and explained the problem, and in very short order, a workman came to reattach the handle and turn the water off. I don't think my room ever cooled off or dried out the rest of the time we were there. I celebrated my 16th birthday in Acapulco at what I remember as a very upscale restaurant that had been written up in a travel magazine. It had live music and dancing. We were seated in an upstairs balcony where we could look down on the dancers below. A young Mexicano with shiny, slicked-back hair and a shirt half unbuttoned, showing a bare chest, asked Molly to dance. After the dance, he took her outside to cool down and asked if she was married. When she told him that she wasn't, he admitted that he would very much like to come to the U.S., but that he needed an American wife to do so. He then asked Molly to marry him. She replied in her most pleasant and polite manner that she was flattered by the invitation, but that she'd have to say no. Although several other Mexican men asked my mother and Helen to dance later in the evening, there were no further marriage proposals. I was permitted to have my very first alcoholic drink, a margarita, to celebrate, perhaps another adult experience Daddy thought I was ready to have. While my father dutifully and happily took turns dancing with all of his women, I sipped away at my tasty sweet margarita. Soon after my dinner was placed in front of me, I hissed urgently to my mother, "Am I acting weird? Because I can't cut my meat." Of course, I was tipsy. Our second stop was Cuernavaca, from which I have only two memories. One is of a lovely restaurant we visited for lunch, where white peacocks strode the grounds, causing Molly to say that this was what heaven must be like. Later, a parrot came to rest on her shoulder.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.